the poo is causing outrage. The much-loved animated bear has been banned from a Polish playground. The reason
at archaeological sites.
Laws, so you can't give alcoholic drinks to a moose in Alaska. They're all based on proper reasons, so somebody got a moose drunk.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we've got something truly bizarre and fun to explore. Crazy laws from around the world. Some of these might leave you scratching your head, others might make you laugh, and a few could even make you question how they ever came into existence. These laws range from the totally practical to the completely strange, but they all share one thing in common. They're real. Whether they're a reflection of culture, history, or just some really odd circumstances, we're about to dive into some of the weirdest regulations you'll ever hear of. So, grab a snack, sit back, and let's get into it. 1. No chewing gum in Singapore. First up, we have one of the cleanest countries in the world, Singapore. Now, you might think of gum as a harmless treat, but in Singapore, chewing gum is actually illegal, unless it's prescribed for medical purposes, like nicotine gum. This strange law was passed in 1992 in an effort to keep the city spotless. Why, you ask? Because people were sticking gum in the most ridiculous places, like on train doors, causing malfunctioning doors and delayed services. It's a strange one, but if you've ever been to Singapore, you know how spotless the streets are. In fact, the government has been so serious about this that they've even imposed heavy fines for bringing gum into the country. I'm not saying I miss it, but when you're craving a piece of gum, it makes you think twice before you travel there. 2. It's illegal to die in Longyearbyen, Norway. Next, we're heading to the far north, to a tiny town called Longyearbyen in Norway. Now, you might think this is some kind of myth, but it's actually true. It's illegal to die in Longyearbyen. Why? Because the town sits on the Svalbard Islands, right inside the Arctic Circle, where the ground is permafrost frozen solid all year round. The issue here is that bodies can't decompose in the permafrost, so when people pass away, their remains don't break down naturally. In fact, scientists have found old bodies, including those from the 1918 Spanish flu, still perfectly preserved in the frozen ground. To avoid health risks, if you're terminally ill and living here, you are legally required to leave the town to die elsewhere. It's one of the most bizarre laws I've ever heard of. 3. No high heels at ancient sites in Greece. Alright, let's shift gears to Greece, home of some of the world's oldest and most iconic monuments, including the Acropolis. If you ever plan to visit these ancient sites, you might want to rethink your footwear. In Greece, it's actually illegal to wear high heels at historical sites. The reason? The sharp points of high heels can damage the ancient stonework, and these sites are part of Greece's invaluable heritage. We're talking about monuments that have stood for thousands of years, and preserving them for future generations is a priority. So if you're planning to visit the Parthenon, maybe opt for something a little more practical, like sneakers or flats. 4. No flushing toilets after 10 p.m. in Switzerland. Now let's take a look at Switzerland, a country known for its stunning landscapes, precise watches, and quiet neighbors. In some parts of Switzerland, specifically apartment buildings, it's actually illegal to flush the toilet after 10 p.m. This rule exists to keep noise levels down in the communal living areas. Swiss culture places a strong emphasis on respect for others, and noise, especially late at night, can be a real nuisance. Imagine being in a shared apartment complex and hearing the toilet flush at midnight. It could disrupt your entire evening. So, to maintain peace and respect, this strange law was born. But don't worry, not every building enforces this, though it's always best to keep the peace if you're living there. 5. No Winnie the Pooh in Polish playgrounds. Next, let's head to Poland. In a small town called Tucson, officials decided that the beloved character Winnie the Pooh is not suitable for children's playgrounds. Why? Well, believe it or not, the issue wasn't Pooh's attitude, it was his attire or lack thereof. According to local officials, the fact that Pooh doesn't wear pants makes him an inappropriate role model for kids. Can you imagine? A childhood icon, banned because of his bare bottom. It's definitely one of the strangest takes on a children's character, but it shows how local customs and values can sometimes make the most unexpected laws. 6. No feeding pigeons in Venice, Italy. If you've ever visited Venice, Italy, you know how iconic the pigeons are, especially around St. Mark's Square. But here's a fun fact. It's actually illegal to feed these pigeons in Venice. The city passed this law to protect its historic buildings and monuments. You see, pigeon droppings are highly acidic and can cause serious damage to the centuries-old structures. Also, feeding pigeons encourages them to gather in large numbers, creating hygiene issues and making the area even messier. So, while it may be tempting to toss a little bread for a feathered friend, don't do it in Venice unless you want to face a fine. 7. No chewing loudly in Massachusetts, USA. Massachusetts has a quirky old law that bans eating peanuts in church. While this isn't actively enforced today, it's an amusing glimpse into the past. The law likely aimed to prevent disruptions during religious services, but the idea of lawmakers sitting down to discuss peanut-related noise is hilarious. While modern churches probably won't kick you out for snacking, it's fun to imagine a time when this was a serious concern. 8. No donkeys in bathtubs in Arizona, USA. Arizona's law against donkeys sleeping in bathtubs has a surprisingly detailed backstory. In the 1920s, a rancher's donkey fell asleep in a bathtub during a flood. The tub floated away, and rescuing the donkey became a massive operation, causing chaos and damage. 9. No wearing camouflage in Barbados. In Barbados, wearing camouflage is strictly reserved for military personnel. Civilians are completely banned from sporting camo patterns, and violators can face fines or even jail time. This law exists to avoid confusion or misuse of military attire. If you're visiting this beautiful island, stick to tropical prints and leave the camo at home. You'll blend in with the stunning scenery instead. 10. No selfies with Buddha in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, the law prohibiting selfies with your back turned to a Buddhist statue stems from a deep respect for Buddhist traditions and cultural values. Buddhism is a cornerstone of Sri Lankan culture, and Buddhist statues are considered sacred representations of enlightenment and wisdom. Turning your back on a Buddhist statue for a selfie is seen as disrespectful because it implies disregard for its sanctity. To many Buddhists, it's equivalent to showing your back to a revered elder or religious leader, an act that would be unthinkable in their culture. 11. No naming a pig Napoleon in France. In France, it's illegal to name your pig Napoleon. This peculiar law dates back to the country's respect for its historical figure, Napoleon Bonaparte. The law was implemented to prevent the mockery of the emperor, who is considered a significant symbol of French history. The issue here is associating his name with an animal traditionally seen as unclean in many cultures. While the law might not be strictly enforced today, it reflects the French passion for protecting the dignity of their historical figures. So, if you're in France with a pig for some reason, think twice before choosing a name. It's best to stick with something neutral like Porky. 12. No frowning in Milan, Italy. In Milan, Italy, there's a law that requires citizens to smile at all times in public, except during funerals or hospital visits. The law, known as an old civic regulation, was initially introduced to uplift the city's spirits and promote a cheerful atmosphere. While this law isn't actively enforced today, the idea behind it is fascinating. It's a reminder of how governments in the past tried to shape the mood and morale of their citizens through laws. So, if you're ever in Milan, remember to flash a smile. You'll fit right in with the city's sunny vibe, and you might just make someone's day brighter. It's easy to laugh at how quirky these laws seem, but when you dig deeper, they often reflect a culture's values, history, and priorities. So next time you travel, keep an eye out for unusual regulations. You might stumble across something just as crazy. Which law shocked or amused you the most? Let me know in the comments below.